Josh,
Good morning.
what's going on, buddy?
Oh, a few things here and there. How are you?
I'm okay, but did you get any sleep last night?
Um, define any.
5 minutes here, an hour there.
I got a couple of hours.
So tell me how you felt inside when you found out, oh my God, I got this golden ticket, man. I made the show. I got the Willy Wonka chocolate. Like, you know what I mean?
It was a wild experience. I had never applied before, and this was my first time throwing myself into anything like this. And honestly, it felt like this huge fever dream because obviously COVID is going on. So you're kind of like isolated and then you just kind of move. It was just like a series of different isolations. And then all of a sudden I'm back at home and I'm just like, what? Like, what just happened?
Your first thoughts when you enter the house and you're sizing up the house guests and you're seeing the house, there must be a lot of things going on. I don't know, my brain would be like, ooh, So, I mean, tell me what you think I thought about the house and the house guests that you were playing with and against for all intents and purposes.
Well, my first impression was, wow, everybody is really tall. Like, I would say the cast on average is like very tall outside of like a couple of people that are not as tall. And then you're just, yeah, it's just like a weird, excited to get to know people, but you're sizing people up and you're like just trying to put everything together, but you have no clue, honestly, on those first impressions who anybody is. So honestly, I was trying to ignore them as much as I could because I thought those would be a distraction for me and put just like thoughts in my head that weren't fair to be there, especially if we had to jump right into playing a game quickly.
Were you set to rock with watching some previous seasons knowing, okay, I got to go in there, but not be too much like this and be too much like that and this and that, like what kind of predispositions did you have kind of going in?
Going in, like for just being myself, my entire goal was like, if I'm doing this, I'm doing it authentically myself. I was not interested in playing up a character or being an exaggerated version of myself. Like everything Canada saw, me talking to myself out loud in rooms, just wanting to eat cookies, like, just like just being uninterested in like conversations that were happening around me and like ultimately kind of playing alone and being okay with like being a target on my back and like being okay with being yelled at in a house meeting kind of a couple times. All of that was like very authentically me, like my reactions to being yelled at and just like sitting there calm and collected. It's very authentically me just saying weird little things and not really noticing people are around. Very authentically me, and like I hope Canada got to see like that true side of me.
There were a lot of people that you could see and playing the game, people clicked up in there pretty quick. And again, you mentioned it looked like you were all alone. Why do you think that was the case? Was that something, like you said, you're cool with it? Did you go in thinking, I'm going to do me, or just kind of went that way? Did you try to work with ABC and D and it didn't go that way?
So I had tried, so on day one, I had actually made a final two alliance with Kyle. And then I wanted to pull in a girl to work with, and that girl I approached was Victoria. So we kind of started a little three-pronged thing going, but the goal was to get a fourth. And then I noticed Kyle and Ro were getting along really, really well and just like constantly together. So then all I could think was like, for this to happen, I just have to make it into like this foursome. And just when Kyle asked me who I think from the team defenders side should come in, I was just like, yeah, Ro. But the thing is like I just did not trust Ro from like the second I saw him constantly leering into every room and like peering around corners and just being this little sneak.
Now, last week, you and Julie had this convo, and then it led to Julie trying to speak to Victoria, and then all of a sudden, all hell breaks loose. And I'm wondering, the whole blew up the house on day 3. Is that that, or is that something else? Because you mentioned that a couple times, especially in the rap and all this and whatnot. I mean, there was a lot of things that went on. Josh is like,
I
here I
would
am.
like to note that I actually did not come up with the blew up the house on day 3 line. That was everybody else.
Okay.
While I was MIA doing stuff that we have to do periodically in the house, they came up with that portion. And then everything just spirals like wildfire in that house. And because I was the first one to kind of say slash do anything and or have like any emotional reaction to anything, everything was just like under this massive microscope, and everyone just like pinned me as this like villain, can't keep a secret, all this stuff. So yeah, Julie somewhat blew up my game a little bit, but then also like I was kind of blowing up my game a little bit because I also was realizing I didn't want to work with Kyle and Roe, and then I was having other thoughts that were like bigger than the house, that just like were emotional, that I had not prepared for, and had figured out a way to kind of get what I wanted emotionally and logically. Came up with a way, and that was like to go after Roe and discuss a potential Pretty Boys 2.0 alliance that I do not know if it was legitimately going to happen, but I think Canada can see that I know where Roe's head is at and can figure out what he's scheming up pretty easily. So I do not think that it was not a thought in a lot of those people's heads. And each 4 of them, when asked favorite house guest of seasons past, said someone in the Pretty Boys alliance. So I was suspicious.
Now you get put up on the block, and then you got Kiefer on the block. So, you know, you don't want to be on the block ever if you can. I mean, it's tough in a game like this. But when that happens, what goes through your mind? How do you calm and cool yourself down when it's like, I'm on the block, you know?
Well, in like my stoic practice, I always make peace with the worst and am hopeful for the best. So that way I can't be let down. So it initially, everything with multiple outcomes starts with that mindset going into it. And then I feel like I probably could have stayed over Kiefer, with kind of the pitch that I eventually did, which is
You pitched there.
probably
It was a
where I
great
would
pitch.
have.
They were all looking at you, and they were like, this is actually a really good pitch.
I know. I'm happy that I left, that they realized I'm not just like saying that I'm like intelligent, which was actually Beth twisting my words a bit. But yeah, like I can think things up and understand like what motivates people. Just there's a few things I had not planned for. Yeah, but against Keeper, I was feeling like I was hoping it would be Roe versus Kiefer, but I knew it would be me versus Kiefer. And Kiefer was also kind of like the odd man out through Austin's lens.
There had to be somebody who had your back in this house, even if they maybe didn't voice it or whatnot. There had to be somebody who maybe was scared to have your back because they're with something else or whatever the case may be. I mean, was there that one person who you either know or feel?
I have a strong feeling that even if like Victoria wouldn't do anything to blow up my game necessarily, I do think she did appreciate me and did have my back when she could. She did tell me about Jed coming to have a blow up at me, and had told me she was impressed with me and was like impressed when people were like starting to consider flipping, things like that, which actually meant quite a lot to me, because like one, I also like I know people are thinking about it, but for someone just to say like, wow, like for the hand you're dealt right now, you're doing a good game. And especially because she was like the biggest super fan in the house, it was just like very nice, and I really liked Victoria.
Let's talk Showmances for a quick sec here. Any forming in there that you knew of or had suspicions of, and your thoughts Josh on Showmances in the game of Big Brother.
I'm all for showmances, especially if they're like cute ones where people like actually might date outside of the house and like fall in love. I'm a big softie and I love seeing that stuff. Think I like tried to giggle with everybody in the house about who they thought was cute. No one was having it. Um but then there was just like what whatever is going on between Jed, Beth, and Ty, it made me feel uncomfortable, and I just couldn't be in the room when it was happening.
Now, if you had to pick one person out of anybody in there to be in a showmance with no repercussions and just fun for the season, who would it have been with out of this cast?
The mirror.
I love it. I love it. That is a Josh answer. I love it. We'll take that as it is. That's great. We talked about your campaigning. During your chat with Arissa after the eviction, Beth revealed to you there was a Sunsetters Alliance, and you were like, did you have any inkling about any of that, and what do you think about that revelation?
I obviously knew something was happening with a majority of those people. The reason I was pulling certain people in was I just made it seem like I just liked everybody, but like I have eyes. The house is pretty obvious. At least in some cases. For the most part, like what I had actually thought it was is I thought it was one alliance that was Tara, Tina, Kiefer, and Latoya, and then I thought it was a secondary alliance that was Latoya, Jed, and Ty. So I thought Latoya was going to be the pivotal one in that whole ordeal, and I thought me presenting this to them was going to be a way for them to be like, oh wow, we can organically bring all of this together, and it's Josh's idea and we can throw him under the bus if the time ever comes. So I thought that was happening, but my misstep in that whole thing was Beth. Beth was the one in there and Tara was on the outside. Oh, and Kiefer aligning himself with Kyle and Roe for whatever reason was also not a part of the thought that was happening. I did not know that happened until he came out and trusted me way too much and told me for some reason. I'm not entirely sure why he did that. I could have used it against him, but everyone thought I was so untrustworthy already. I just felt like it would do more damage than good.
Final question. We got only a couple of seconds here. What happens now? Who do you think is safe and who's in trouble? Who's safe? Who's in trouble?
I hope the people in trouble are Ro and Beth, and I hope the people that are safe are Victoria and Latoya.
Josh, thank you so much for hanging out, man. Much success in whatever you do next, dude. And it was great seeing a BC kid up in there, man. There's a few of them in there.
Yeah, we got kicked off pretty early.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Take care. Bye.
Cheers.